Hello, I'm Ingrid Frank, and I've got something to say. This was my first summer in America, and we were on vacation, and my friend and I used to go to the swimming pool, the hybrid swimming pool in New York, up at 181st Street every day during the summer. It was free. You could get in without having to pay. And I was coming out one day. I was in the dressing room. That's really how it started. And at that time there was no mixing of the races. Even though blacks, well, at that time we called them Negro or colored people were allowed to use the swimming pool. There was no interplay between the white kids and the black kids. But one day as I was getting dressed after the pool, I saw 2 or 3 black girls teasing a little white girl who was being very stupid. She was crying. They were pulling the towel away from her and she was crying. So I went over there and I held the towel for her and I said to the black girls, please don't bother her, she's too young. And they left and I got dressed and got ready to leave, and one of the girls stopped me and said, you know those colored girls, that's the word they used at the time, those colored girls outside are going to beat you up for bothering them when what they were doing. You'd better get the police to walk you home. And I just didn't believe that. I thought, no, if I walk out with a smile on my face, I'm sure they're not going to beat me up. And I walked out with a smile on my face. I remember walking down the entrance to the pool, and I saw them sitting out there waiting for me. And I approached them with a smile, and I said, wasn't that little girl silly? Like, we all got the same thing, so what if we see each other? And that they answered with a pleasant smile, and we talked about the little girl for a while, and then one of them said to me, what kind of an accent is that? And I said, it's probably German. I was born in Germany. This is my first year in America. And she said, oh, I heard something. What happened in Germany? And I said, they don't like Jews, and they threw stones at us and called us names. And we couldn't go to their schools. And one of the girls said, oh, that's just like us here in America. They don't like blacks, and they throw stones at us, and they hang us on trees. And that was the first time that I became aware of what the situation was with black and white in America. And we shared an ice cream cone, one of those for a penny. A couple of us had a penny. And I remember 2 of us shared one strawberry ice cream cone. And we said goodbye, and we said we'd meet again at the swimming pool the next day. And going home, I thought, my God, I've been here for almost a year, and I never noticed that America's whites are treating black people the same way that Germany treated its Jews. And at that moment, I promised myself that if I ever saw discrimination, I would say something, and that I was not going to be a good German and not say anything when I saw discrimination. And that was the beginning of my awareness of the relationship between black and white in America, and doing my best effort to change it. And I'm still working at that. That's 80 years later.
A pretty early awakening.
Well, that was because I had the experience of being Jewish in Germany.
Did you go home and tell your parents about the incident?
No, at least I don't remember. But I remember sitting in front of my house and making this vow that I will never allow anything like that to happen, or anybody to say anything bad about somebody just because of their color or their religion or so. That moment when she said, oh, that's what they hanged my grandfather, at that moment I realized that blacks and I have the same, German Jews at least, have the same background. And we have to work together. That was the beginning of my activism. Then after that came all kinds of the Scottsboro Boys, and what was his name? He was 15. He said hi to a white woman. And
Emmett Till.
I will never forget seeing that on the newspaper on the subway. Emmett Till 15 found dead because he was missing for a while.
Yeah.
And they found him in a river. And there were many cases like that. And that led me into being politically involved to change, to make the world a little bit better. Also the first year, maybe it was the second year that I was in America, I participated in my first political activism. And that was taking a piece of white chalk, going to Fort Tryon Park and writing on all the walls and the black cement roads, "A horse's tail is nice and silky. Pick it up and you'll see Wilkie." And that was my contribution to electing President Roosevelt, who was running against Wilkie. And thank goodness President Roosevelt won. I don't remember, Mark Antonio, who was a Puerto Rican, was running for Congress. Mark Antonio. And so we went campaigning for him in the project, and people said, "Oh, if you go in the project, you'll never come out alive." We said, "We don't believe that." We, meaning me and maybe 4 or 5 other friends. By that time we belonged to, I don't know whether this was the Labor Youth League or Americans for Democracy. Young American, AYD, Young Americans for Democracy. But we campaigned for him, and I don't remember whether he won, but in those days, being Puerto Rican was almost as bad as being black. And I don't remember, we campaigned for him in the project. And most people were very nice. Some of them didn't open the door, but we had no trouble at all. And more I began to realize that people's fears were in their heads rather than in reality. What I wanted to be was somebody who would explain that said that on my high school graduation book. Someone who wants to explain power politics to the little people and make the world a better place.
Small goals.
Well, at that time they had one female column. The New York Times had one female columnist, and I can't remember her name now. But I wanted to be her. They had no women. The only women in newspapers at that time were what they called tier sisters or something. They reported on crime and who was sleeping. No, in those days they didn't report on who was sleeping. I applied at all the newspapers, and they told me that when they said copy boys, they mean boys.
Really?
And my mother, in the meantime, was saying, get a secretarial job. You can always get a secretarial job no matter where you... And I was determined I was not going to get a secretarial job. I was going to get a job where I could do something. So I ended up in the promotion department at Esquire.
At Esquire?
It wasn't exactly to help save the world, but it was the best I could do at the time. And so my politics was after hours. My activism was after hours. And I worked for Hearst for a while until... What campaign was... he was Roosevelt's vice president, Wallace, the Henry Wallace campaign. And I went to my job at Hearst wearing a Wallace button. I got into big trouble, and I was told I was not allowed to wear the button. And I insisted on wearing it. Oh, and then there was an ad in a magazine that I saw at Hearst that showed a black man. It was a moving company, and showed a black man moving heavy furniture, and he had the big feet and the big hands and the big lips that they used to draw on the black men at that time. And I wrote to the editor of the magazine, and I said how bad that was and how unfair it was, and asked him to please change it. A couple of weeks later, I get called into Mr. Hearst's office, and I get fired for using their stationery and making it look as though it came from Hearst.
Oh my goodness.
So I've lost a couple of jobs because I insisted on wearing the button and all that. I never gave it a thought that it would look like the president. I guess it must have been the president's stationery. I don't remember. I just took a piece of paper and wrote the letter.
That's really
But it
funny.
was just as good because I wouldn't have lasted all that long at Hearst. They were just too conservative at that time. All the jobs like Hearst was a conservative organization. But I didn't know that, and I didn't pay any attention to it anyway. I continued to wear my button. And I always spoke up for my politics, even in the most conservative. I was a publicist for the Hotel Plaza for a couple of years before I had children. And there I saw the glamorous life of women in high heels and black stockings every day and gloves. When they went to the ball, they had gloves up, leather gloves, white leather gloves up to here. And we had to wear evening gowns too. And all my friends said, oh, you can find a rich man there. But a rich man was the last thing I wanted. I wanted a committed man, an intelligent man. And I got it.
And for money.
Well, money, I never was interested in money. But I discovered that the less interested you are in money, the less you have, and the more you have to be concerned about money. Because then it's the problem, how do you pay the rent each month? We ultimately lost our house. And how do you keep the phone on? Our phone was turned off regularly because we couldn't pay. I didn't intend to talk about all this. It felt wonderful when we were able to do something. At that point, it was mainly George. George was the only black member of the New Jersey Legislature in 1961. He organized the picket line. They were building a new high school in Newark. And when he went down to the site, he noticed that there was not a single black worker. They were all white. It was the union. And he organized a picket line outside it, and the call for pickets to come out the next morning went to all the progressive organizations around the state. And so people came, and the next day he had, 30 or 40, or maybe it was 50, I don't remember, pickets in front of the site. And he got dragged through the mud by the cops a couple of times. And the rabbi, what happened to him? He got wounded.
He got hit in the face with a stick club.
Yeah, the workers were not very happy to see
Rabbi
him.
Drizzle, you might have heard him.
That's where we met.
You were one of the people who answered the call.
I was one of the ones who marched on the picket line. And that's an interesting story, but it takes us way off. Because as a result, he threatened they had the head of Prudential Insurance had its headquarters in Newark, and the Bamberger's Corporation, and what were some of the other big companies. Anyway, this was the first time that there had been a civil rights demonstration in Newark, and they came down to talk, and they had a meeting with him, and they said, what do you want? And he said, jobs for my people. Otherwise, I'm taking the demonstration downtown. And they were afraid of the demonstration going downtown because maybe it would end up with broken glass and all kinds of trouble. So they made 30,000.
They committed to 3,000 downtown.
3,000, yeah, 30,000 sounded right.
But overall, they committed to 30,000.
And that was the first opening.
3,000 jobs?
Yeah, well, this was Bamberger's, the major companies downtown, so they could say they could make that kind of commitment.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah.
And out of that came an organization of civil rights organizations and businessmen. What was it called?
It was called a BICC.
Business.
And what that was presidents of the top businesses downtown, the top civil rights leaders in Newark, that met together to talk about how they could bring up jobs and training. And so that became an organization that stayed in existence about 3 or 4 years. We actually began to see downtown Newark change. That time, earlier, there were no black bus drivers and no sales girls.
There was nothing black above street level.
Except janitors like that. So all that changed during that period.
And anyway, so I met him the following year. He was thrown off the Democratic ticket for being a premature integrationist. They didn't have the word civil rights yet.
Premature integrationist.
And so he decided to run his own not his own, but he decided to run a political ticket of all black candidates. And our organization, I was chair lady, we called me at that time, chair lady.
What a word.
But I was chair lady of the Anti-Nuclear Bomb Committee, this Committee for Sane Nuclear Policy, and the fair housing. We used to go in and test housing. With first a white couple would go in and they'd be told that, oh, the apartment is for rent. You can come look at it now. And then we'd send a black couple of equal age and money and family and children and type of job. And they would be told, oh, I'm sorry, the apartment was rented 10 minutes ago. You're just 10 minutes too late. And that was a pattern. Why am I telling you this? I was leading into something which I don't remember. Anyway, oh yes, that he ran an all-black ticket for the New Jersey State Legislature. And we distributed his flyers all over. On election day, he got 4 votes in my district. My husband, me, and our 2 friends, 4 votes. But the following year, he was inspired, and that was really the beginning of our relationship, to start an integrated ticket with black, white, male, and female, because at that time there were no candidates for Congress who were women. There was 1 woman in Congress, and there was 1 woman in the New Jersey State Senate. But women didn't run for things like that. And so he ran something called, he and his volunteers, I don't mean he alone, he and his volunteers, the United Freedom Party. And they selected a group of black, white, Hispanic, male and female candidates, all who had some sort of relationship or were in a leadership position in some of the civil rights groups. And I was asked to become a candidate, which I was very honored about, but it broke up my marriage, which is okay, because it was in the point of breaking anyway. And I became a candidate in the United Freedom Party. None of us won office, but again, at that time we were into making statements that you can have an integrated ticket and blacks should and women should be invited to be part of the electoral process.
Let me add this. They got 10,000 votes. But there was enough votes to defeat the Democratic Party. At that point, they decided to recognize the black leaders in the black community. They put some of them on tickets and appointed legislators. So that, 10,000 votes could show that we could defeat the Democratic Party. And so that we became allies with them. They began to recognize the power of being able to do that. Mm-hmm.
They recognized the fact that they had to integrate their ticket. They couldn't just have whites. And I worked very close. I became the press secretary for the United Freedom Party. And we started working together. And then we started playing together. And that was 52 years ago. And we've been working together ever since. And we're such a wonderful partnership because now nobody's jealous of the other, because his talent is in organizing and understanding the political aspects of our work, and I'm the creative end. I design the brochures and I do the writing. Anything that comes out of our office is my writing and his thinking. I always say, we're just like a normal couple. You're the male, you plant the idea. I'm the female that closes it so that the public can see it. Isn't that clever?
That's pretty clever.
Now we're working on letting people know the Koch brothers. I don't know what the evil that the Koch brothers are doing. They are multi-billionaire oil owners, ultra conservative. Their father told them that the Democrats passed welfare only to get black people to move to the cities and become politically active, and they were going to elect a black man as president. That was their worst nightmare. And he was going to be a communist, though nobody was going to know about it. But they have spent multi-millions on defeating they spent 8 years trying to defeat Obama. And most people don't know about the Koch brothers, so that's our current project, getting America to know that they have poisoned the political climate and gave us Trump. If it hadn't weren't for the Kochs, we wouldn't have Trump now.
Did you work on the Obama campaign?
Oh, definitely. And we left now, he just came back. After 8 years of Koch trying to destroy him, he came back even stronger.
So go back a little after you worked with the Freedom Party.
Mm-hmm.
What was the next campaign that you were?
He ran. He was the mover behind a campaign to elect a black mayor for Newark, Kenny Gibson. And that was an interesting campaign, but he should have been the candidate because Kenny Gibson was dull and he had no imagination, no fire.
Kenny Gibson, he did well.
He did well?
Yeah.
Okay. Listen to him. He's political. I just say I did the publicity for the Gibson. I and one of the guys from the campaign did the publicity for it. I found him fireless. Anyway, he didn't win. But again, it made the statement that a big city can have a black mayor, which there was one, Stokes, Louis Stokes. Carl Stokes in Cleveland. But that was the only one in the country. So we ran. He was the campaign manager. He should have been the candidate, but he said, Kenny has a clean record. They can go back. They won't find anything.
No political...
No anything, no. He had a wife. He didn't have a mistress. He went to church a perfect candidate. He didn't win, but again, we made a statement. And I want to tell him the story about when King came to Newark. What year was that? What?
When Martin Luther King
came to Newark after the riots. And they had a big flatbed truck, and George was his leader. Took him around. And they drove through the devastated streets, and they were talking, and George, you tell the story, how did the drug thing come up? Oh, he said how terrible the destruction was, and George said, yeah, well, so many of the young men are drug addicts now. And King said drugs has to be our next campaign, the focus of our next campaign. But he went to St. Louis.
Well, at that time I told him that I had been a former addict. He said, well, you have to tell your story. And then that's when we decided to write my autobiography, Get Up, You're Not Dead.
Which Norton published in 1975, so long ago.
It was about overcoming drugs, the whole thing, but also creating a drug strategy, how to deal with it in a positive way. Other than mass incarceration, about rehabilitation, supportive training like that. And that book took us to the White House.
We were invited to consult with the White House.
Did you help with work on the book?
I wrote the book. And when he asked me to, at first I said, I can't write in the voice of a 20-year-old black man. No matter how black I live, I can't write in that voice. So we gave it to another couple who were going to do a sample chapter for us. And it took them weeks and weeks and weeks to work on it, and finally they brought it to us. And when they left, I looked at it, and I read the first chapter, and I said, I know I can do better than that. And I did, and that book is up there, and it took us to the White House. It's called Get Up, You're Not Dead, which was a message to... And we exposed the Nixon drug cover-up because Nixon declared war on drugs one year, and the following year he said, we have conquered drugs. It's no longer a problem. We exposed that, and the drug chief at the time at the White House said he wanted to have a synergistic relationship with us. And neither one of us knew what synergistic meant, but we knew it meant something good. So we walked out on air.
Wait, Nixon invited you to the White House?
No.
President Carter's director of the White House.
Director, yes.
Okay.
And then on the way home, we had a friend. As a matter of fact, that friend was a vice president of Gray Advertising, which was at that time was one of the big advertising agencies. He also didn't know what synergistic meant. We got a flat tire on the way home from a White House visit. We didn't have enough money to get a new tire. That was always a story of our life. We got invited to a big ceremony. We had a project with the French ambassador one time, a couple of years ago. That was when Bush, God, so many stories. When Bush had declared war on, it was the Vietnam War, but he hadn't declared war on. Anyway, it was in the Vietnam era, and France didn't want to participate in his war, as most of the nations did not. And they started saying all kinds of bad things about the French, had no courage, and the French were cowards. And the French fries in the congressional office, the restaurant, they were no longer called French fries, they were called, what were they?
Freedom fries.
Freedom fries, right. And we approached the French, not ambassador, consul, and suggested, because France has always had a good relationship with its black citizens. It was never like it was over here. And we suggested having a celebration of French and American friendship. And what was it called?
Let me add this. Harlem had a major unit that fought in France. They called them the Harlem Hellfighters. And they were the heroes of that part of the war. And so the relationship between Harlem and France had always been both culturally and military together. So when France refused to join the American-Iraq War,
The Iraq War,
we created a campaign called Vive la Harlem. And 369 Harlem Hellfighters had a parade on Fifth Avenue every year. And we had the French Consul General lead that parade. Had to be a woman who was pregnant, woman in back council, who led the parade up Fifth Avenue.
That's terrific.
Yeah, so.
In the 100 Black Generals.
Mm. At that time, the man did.
There was Powell, who was the only black general that we knew of.
Yeah, one of the things we found out was that blacks knew very little about their own history in this country, particularly about the West and the discovery of black towns and black cities. And when I was in the legislature, I knew nothing about that. So we decided we would try to find out more and more about the Black West. Then we found that there were also black generals. So not only we knew Powell, but we didn't know that there were others.
Huh.
So we found there were 100 black generals. We were blown away.
In the United States Army?
In the American Army. 100 black generals. So we had...
And the only one anybody knew of was Powell, even us who was interested, because we, the cowboy is America's symbol of strength and manhood and independence. And nobody ever knew that there were black cowboys. So when we found out that there were black cowboys, friends of ours went down west, up west, or whatever you do, across through anyway, they came back from the west, and they said they saw black cowboys, and they took some video and they showed us.
And black towns.
And black towns out west, and we were blown away by it, and we said, black kids, American kids have to know this, that they share the legacy of the cowboy. So we started, anyway, it resulted in the first Black Rodeo to ever be shown in New York. Actually, it was Jersey City, the first one, because nobody in New York would believe that we could bring in enough cowboys to produce a Black Rodeo. But we did manage to do, the first one was in Jersey City, the second one was in Randall's Island,
No
and the
kidding.
third one was in New Jersey. But we were sold out Friday night, and Friday afternoon we always gave a free performance for schools and so in the neighborhood, social service agencies. That was sold out. It was butt to butt on the benches, and the kids were thrilled to see black cowboys on bucking horses.
That's remarkable.
Yeah, and then the third Black Rodeo we did in Jersey, and we're sold out for Friday night, and then during the night it started raining, and it rained and it rained and it rained, and Saturday morning it still rained, and Sunday morning we got washed out. We were in debt for years to pay off.
Oh.
But we got wonderful publicity. The Amsterdam News said there were 125,000 people saw the Black Cowboys. And a movie was made of it, a documentary. So now people know they were Black Cowboys. Something that I heard when I first came to America, I was in 5th grade, and we had an assembly, and a woman got up and we gave her some sort of inspirational speech, and she said, live your life in a way so that when you're 80 or 90 and you get ready to die, you don't have to say, is that all there is? And that made such an impression on me that I tell that to everybody that I speak to. Whenever I speak, I always say, first of all, live your life more for your conscience than your comfort, and live it in such a way that at the end you don't have to say, is that all there is? And then I go into other stuff too, but that's how I end up.
That sounds like a very solid bit of advice.
Well, I hope it is, because I hope if the young kids, what are they called? The new century kids. What?
Millennials?
The millennials. If the millennials, they're much smarter than their parents anyway about the world. They're not prejudiced, most of them, the way they're open to new messages. And if we can only get them enthused about putting themselves, working for change, we can change the world. So I would say to every teenager, every 20, 30-year-old, make your life count. Don't just be a consumer, be a doer. Build a better world. And at the end, you'll feel good about your life. You won't feel, is that all there is?